So welcome to Future Vision. My name's Anne Jersh. I'm the author of Future Vision, Your Working Life. I want to talk to people who kind of are anticipating the future. They're understanding the changes going on in the world, particularly the world of work, because I can see people struggling. And I think we've got a lot more change to come. We all think, oh, we've had a few things happen recently or the last few years. Forget it. That's going to continue. I know it's going to continue. So we need people, and I've often called some people straddlers, and they kind of straddle the old way and the new way. There's people out there totally visionary and they're not realistic. We have to live in the real world, and we need to move out the old world and adapt. So today's guest is Shirley Palmer. She managed to get shirleypalmer.com, so that was very neat. She must have been in on the internet, anticipating very early on of the internet to get that. Now, Shirley's a businesswoman, but she understands mindset, and she's all about, she can, working maybe with a startup, maybe with medium-sized business, maybe for a small business, helping them grow, adapt, anticipate, scale up, all sorts of things. So welcome, Shirley. Did I sum that up okay?
You did, Anne. Thank you very much. It's really appreciated. You did indeed.
So thank you. Thanks for coming on. I've been watching your work. Obviously, I've watched your work for a long time, but I've really been watching your work more in recent times, particularly because you've been developing the Simple series, and that is, I've got goosebumps as I mention it. I've just got goosebumps up my arm because I'm seeing people overcomplicate their businesses. I'm really seeing people overcomplicate, trying to learn everything, be everything, do everything, and it's going to ruin them. So why did you? Because it's kind of almost like a slight lane change. You've moved into a different lane. Simple series. What inspired you to set that up?
Okay, so there's two pieces to the puzzle. So of course, as COVID hit, and if we look at shirleypalmer.com, which really deals with international clients, the focus there was very much around dealing with CEOs, business leaders, senior management, and helping them really focus on mindset mastery and conscious leadership. So shirleypalmer.com has now got a full rebrand and a full shift, and it is very much at that one-on-one senior level. What happened when COVID kicked in, I really had to help some of my clients who were running with teams of 20, teams of 30 or more, or in some cases, some smaller teams, to reassess and rethink what they were going to do. How were they going to pivot with their business model? And more importantly, could they sustain whatever that hit would be? Now, I don't think anybody ever imagined, I think a lot of people thought, oh, there'll be a matter of weeks or a matter of months. I don't think anybody thought that we would be 18 months on and still dealing with the fallout of either A, dealing with COVID, or B, if you're in the UK, dealing with the Brexit issues. So recognizing that these businesses really needed to make sure that they supported their teams, I said, you really need to be putting me on pause, make sure that these people, their families were supported, looked after. In the UK, people have been very fortunate because the government has been there to support and help a lot of people on furlough. But unfortunately, what they didn't do was they didn't really look at the small business owners. And a lot of the small business owners struggled and just had to keep pedaling on, in a sense, to figure out how do we keep the business running and what does that look like? So what happened for me was that gave me some breathing space to really think, okay, what else is on my horizon? What does that look like? And having worked with yourself in the past, Anne, and really understood so much more about utilizing our intuitive powers, it really was about digging deep and understanding, what does the world need right now? What do we, even if we want to just look specifically in the UK, what do we need right now? And what's of the utmost importance? And out of that, the Simple series was born. And really the concept is straightforward and simple. Our focus is around amplifying growth and helping any individual understand and recognize where their growth needs to be within the business, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. But it starts with the core of the individual and getting to really understand the individual, because I strongly believe that unless you're in the right mindset, unless you're allowing yourself to really utilize and use your intuition on a daily basis, unless you're working from a place of ease and grace and flow, you're still going to keep falling over. So for us, it was an opportunity to really just rethink an element of a pivot, but also to reposition from a viewpoint of people want to create a new side hustle, or maybe someone in the corporate world's always wanted to build a brand and just never had the time. Maybe some people have got an idea and a concept, they don't have the money. Maybe some people are trying to evaluate, does it work? So people have the opportunity to either start off with a very simplistic why program that they can do themselves, and that will help them tap into, is this viable? Is this real? Could I potentially build a business model out of that? And then from there, they can join the Biz Fast Track, which means over the space of 3 months, they can actually get that baby up and running. And, any of us that have built multiple businesses know that it's a new baby, but it needs that purpose. It needs that drive. It needs that passion, and it needs that positioning to make sure that it's really supporting what it is that they're doing. So it was a interesting exercise to create a whole new brand, a whole new business, but equally so in doing so, gave me all the tools to help the team understand, and this is how we equally teach people to grow a business and bring in more around the action. We see lots of people that are running an online course and some aspects that are evergreen, which on certain subjects and certain places are great. But when it comes to building a business, you really need to have that constant engagement. You've got to keep people in an action mindset and getting them to keep moving forward with what it is they believe they can do and serve.
That's amazing. I love that you start with why, because most people have small business are not business people, and they get quite offended when we say that, but then they're not, they're good at something.
Yeah.
And so they go, I'm good at cutting hair, I'm good at flower arranging, I'm good at talking to people, so I'll be a counsellor. And so I see so many people that set up a business and they think some magic thing's going to make that. They think if they set up a website, they're going to suddenly have loads of people, and they end up a bit disappointed. One of the problems that I find difficult dealing with small businesses, a lot of them, as soon as you talk business, it's like tumbleweed. And if you just go, there's a new course where you can add to your skills and do yet another course to add something else, they're there, their eyes light up. You mentioned business, tumbleweed. So it's almost like they find it boring, or they're frightened of it, or whatever. And it's breaking through that, because we lose a lot of good people. You know how many businesses go to the wall. We lose so many good people, but they won't start with why. They won't start with that. They'll go, I'm really good at this. One guy was telling me, he's a really good hypnotherapist. He said usually there's about 15 in the area he lives in. There's now 45. Nobody stopped and said, do we need more in the area? Do we actually need more? Is there a need? I'm really good at this, but is there a need? And that's the bit. So I love that you start with that, and get people to really, because then they'll answer the questions up. They'll put things in place to begin with that they need to, rather than be putting out fires and have loads of problems later, I should imagine.
It's what it does is it helps people. So, let's say Joe Bloggs comes up with an idea of I'm just going to use a new lip liner. So I've seen someone on Facebook in the last day was doing research on a new organic lipstick or something of that ilk. But what most people do is they've got the concept, they've got the idea, they've got the name, they've got all of the above, and then they suddenly go off and they create the amazing website. And what they haven't thought about is who's going to buy it. We talk about the avatar of who that person is. So who are they? Where are they? How do they live? House, their lifestyle, the food that they eat, where are you going to find them? What magazines do they read? Really because You need to get under the skin, so to speak, of your customer. You need to know how your customer thinks and feels. You need to know what it is that you're going to entice them with. Marketing today is very different from what it was 10 years ago, never mind 50 years ago. And, everything is very much consumer driven. But I think at the same point in time, if we look at what's happened with COVID over the last 18 months, people are reevaluating, where am I spending money? On what? What do I need? How does that reposition what I'm doing? I have a gentleman connection on LinkedIn. He's 40 years of age, very successful gentleman. And he's chosen right now to not own a home, to not own a car, to be a bit of a nomad, to explore the world and do a slightly different journey from what's deemed the norm. And, there's a great piece that I think I shared with your audience recently about, the number of people, if we think about it, the number of people that choose to go and do a degree and they're 35 grand in debt, and then maybe they buy a house and that's an extra 200,000, and then maybe they buy a car and that's another 30,000, and before they know it, they've got hundreds of thousands in debt, and people are going around congratulating them for that. Yeah. But if someone, I had someone message me back today and said it cost her 10 euros to start her business, and that was buying the name. And her friends were all saying, you're mad, you're crazy, why are you doing this? But she can fast forward and go, but she had vision, she had belief, she had purpose, she had passion, and she just got on and did it. And, this is getting people to understand that why to start with, so that the business is not built on the foundation of money only, or the foundation of, this is the thing that's going to make me a multimillionaire. Yes, it might, but it won't if you don't have the passion and the drive in the first instance to bring it to the table, because it's that passion, that drive, that desire to serve and to support others in whatever the product or service is the thing that makes you more successful. And it's the journey along the way that also makes you successful. It's a journey along the way that makes you a happy or joyful person. But again, what so many entrepreneurs don't do is they want to wear all the hats. And as you said earlier, that process of, I can go and do a course in this and go a course in that. Do you know what? Stop all that. Focus on what you're really, really good at. Build the brand and build the business. And if you want to look at Richard Branson as a good example, he will constantly say, surround yourself with good people. So this is where mentorship, guide, coaches, but of the right quality and standard to support you. Again, how many of us have seen the number of mentors or coaches out there that they're all business coaching and they've got all these labels, they've got all these qualifications, but they've never run a freaking business in their life.
Yeah,
and they just have never done it. They're questioning things from a textbook. A textbook is just a textbook. It's just someone's viewpoint and opinion. It's not how you really run a business. And I think we're starting to see that shifting and changing as we're starting to see some of the universities look differently at how they're teaching business, how they're engaging with other business people, how that shifts and changed. This last week, I've just been invited to one of the local universities to come and teach some of their MBA students. Well, here's the reality. I don't have an MBA. I don't actually have a degree, to many people's amusement in that sense. But what I do have is the knowledge, the experience, the expertise, the hard graft, and a lot of other base information that really helped me understand business. But that came from being 16 and having a drive and a desire and a passion to build something and be in business and support others, but not really knowing what it was going to be. But it always comes to the horizon eventually.
I love that. I love that because it is about getting out there and doing it. You're absolutely right. I'm forever being offered courses by people who have never run a business, and they'll just go, I'm going to teach you this and I'll teach you that. they've never done it. They make their money from teaching people, as you say, stuff they've read in books. They've never actually done it. And I love what you said about mentors. I mean, for my last book, I really looked into a lot of key players, and they all bowed down to a mentor. And even the biggest names are like, oh, my mentor, you know, the way they talk about them, they just love their mentors. So it isn't just picking somebody because they've done well. It is having that where you admire the way they think, their values, their work ethic, and maybe what they do does match up in some way to what you do, or it's in the same ballpark. And the biggest names, I mean, Oprah Winfrey was, her mentor was Maya Angelou. I mean, you know, it's just amazing. Bill Gates, it was Warren Buffett. It's just, they all seem to have somebody. And, you know, Condoleezza Rice was an interesting one. She said, look, everybody's saying about, you know, stuff the old white men, you know, in business. And she said, that's all there was. My mentors were old white men. My people were telling me you shouldn't be working with them. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't have got anywhere. They were the mentors back then. They were the guys in that position. She said, things are changing now. She said, but maybe your mentor isn't from your background, but they're brilliant at what they do and you admire them. Forget all the politics and other stuff. I love that. I think mentors, I love having mentors. I love learning from other people. It's now and again, I'm learning from somebody when I was setting up a lot of Zoom work and teaching on Zoom. The girl that come in, I mean, she looked 12 to me. She looked 12, you know, and she's the Zoom master. She's the boss of Zoom. She really knows her stuff. So sometimes it's not always what you think, is it?
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. And then there's a reverse role process that goes on there as well, which is really lovely because, you know, as much as we may mentor or coach or guide or support other people, you'll always find there's a little something else that comes in there as a kickback or a process. And I think also what's equally incredibly rewarding is seeing them succeed, seeing them really achieve their heart's desire and their dreams, and equally what it is, those minor little things they come back. You know, I have a lovely lady working with me in Boston at the moment, and she's in the senior management team of a very influential business. And she recently hit a little bit of a curveball in looking at how do I get them to listen a little bit more to me? And I'm feeling I'm very much a woman in a man's world. And I could relate to that very easily from my days in private equity. And in the end, what we focused on was really sitting down and creating a SWOT analysis, you know, your strengths, your weaknesses, and helping her see what was necessary to help educate them, but to come from a place of warmth and knowledge rather than one of arrogance. And this is really what the business needs to do. And in the end, we ended up with a sort of double, triple session, like doing half a day in the process to make sure that she really had fully engaged everything that was necessary there. And in the end, it was like, you know, she came back and goes, my God, you should be really running one of the big corporates. Why are you not doing this, whatever? And I was like, do you know, I love to be able to support people to see what they need to see, because so many people work constantly in their business. They don't work on the business. Mm-hmm. So people like us can just step back, see a helicopter view, help support and guide and push them back in there again with, well, not quite pushing, but guide them back in there again with the knowledge and expertise that they need to develop those strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats, and recognize where is the business moving forward? How can it move forward? And what does that look like? So no desire to run a big corporate, unless of course it's my own.
Yeah, good.
Which is a different ball game altogether.
Well, I'm sure it will be huge. I'm sure I can see that the world needs simple series. I absolutely know it. I just see life getting more and more complicated. I've got a whole chapter in my book on overwhelm. Overwhelm, because people are so burnt out, overwhelmed, and they're trying to do so much. And but I like what you said about strengths and weaknesses. And I know when I've had business coaching, it's very easy. What we tend to do is run with the bits we're good at and concentrate on them and ignore the bits I realized that I ignore the bits I don't understand or know how to do. So I just ignore them, and it's not good. And the other thing is, it's very easy to kind of believe your own bullshit. What I mean by that is that people keep, oh, you're brilliant, you're good at this, you're good at that, and you get a lot of compliments. And all of a sudden, a business coach comes along and go, you're doing that wrong. That bit, you're not good at that bit. And you have to sit there, and I think you have to kind of go, no, I've got to listen to it, because, if we don't fill in all the gaps, we wonder why the business isn't working. But somebody, as you say, with a helicopter view, can see the weak points and the bits where nobody's good at all of it. I mean, as you say, Richard Branson, Henry Ford, I mean, he just said, I'm uneducated, I'm not an educated man, but I employ the best. I employ the best, whatever it is there at push of a button, because I employ the best people. And it really is the company you keep. So I love that. I love that. So looking at small businesses, most of the people listening will be small businesses or wanting to grow something. What would you tell them to do? I know it's a bit general, and that you'd look at people individually and they need to talk to you individually, but on average, what do people need to know now? Because you say advertising 10 years ago, what we did 5 years ago doesn't work now.
So I may have a slightly different view of the future than most. And however, saying all that, I think you and I are probably on the same hymn sheet, so to speak, Anne. But I think businesses going forward are going to be very different. And I think the level of engagement with the customer is going to be different. So whilst we're in this digital area and we've got the immense opportunity to use social media as a fantastic tool, I think there is equally a bigger opportunity to do an element of reverse engineering. So whilst it's easy to reach anybody globally, I think we need to make more emphasis about focusing on what we're doing locally. Because I think local will become the new global aspect. And I think as more people build their brand and understand their brand from a local perspective and what else they're doing in their local communities, how they're supporting them, how they're bringing that level of engagement to the table, then it gets a degree of added expansion in a slightly different way. So, we've all built up global audiences, or we've got different clients throughout the world that we work with. But I think the big corporates of today will shift and change. We're seeing, if we look at London at the moment, London is starting to become a little bit, aspects of it or places in it is becoming a little bit of a ghost town. And if we look at some of the top firms, there is a mute that some of them are actually selling their businesses, and those are going to be converted into housing. And the hybrid business model going forward is going to be one where people will be working anywhere. So people will choose to either be nomads or remote workers or home workers or whatever, but people will also equate more emphasis and more value on what's actually happening in their lives rather than the stuff and the things, and therefore surrounding themselves with good people, good family, good team members, good communities, and thinking a little bit more about sustainability. So for any business, there's going to be businesses that are going to come and go. We've seen lots of people build new businesses, myself included, amidst COVID. We've seen other businesses take the opportunity, because if we look at PPE as an example, I know a company that decided, oh yeah, we can do that. Let's go do that. Knew nothing about the sector or the industry. And actually, they're going to have to shut it all down because it's costing them more than anything else. Yeah. But that was driven out of ego and let's get on the bandwagon, rather than actually let's support our community. What can we do and how can we do it? And I think this is where people will be building businesses that are more on purpose and how they position themselves. So top tips to think about right now, if you've got a business, be crystal clear on your messaging. Really, really know who your customer is and look at how you're doing that engagement with your customer. Start thinking serve rather than sell. If you allow yourself to understand what you're doing is you're serving a customer, you're supporting a customer rather than constantly selling or trying to, for want of a better word, ram a product or a service down their throat. It doesn't work. There's got to be that almost a heart-to-heart connection with who it is that you're buying and what it is, who you're selling to and what it is that they're buying and what that feels like. People are understanding much more about energy and connection and good vibes. And really, we've got to look at what else we can do to support Mother Nature and the planet and to support each other. So sustainability is a really simple one. There was a great one here in Northern Ireland. We've got a factory has just won, not the award, won the contract to provide all the EasyJet uniforms. And actually what they're doing is they're taking recycled bottles, turning it into a fabric and creating the new uniforms out of the fabric. So, we need more businesses to be thinking outside of the box, to be thinking we can't keep doing landfill. We can't keep throwing stuff away. We can't keep, importing products from everywhere else around the world. We've got acclimatized to, I love my avocados and, we can't grow avocados in the UK. And it does pain me every now and again to think, oh gosh, this was imported and what's the carbon footprint that this has impacted and so on and so forth. We do have, unfortunately, idiots out there saying, crazy one the other day that New Zealand lamb's a better footprint than actually using British lamb. Seriously? Come on, guys, that doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. So I think the key tips is always going to be surround yourself with good people. Do something that you feel is 100% ethical. And how can you really, really support your community and what does that look like? And that encouragement about, you mentioned it and you touched on it earlier, employing different type of people, or, if you are an SME that's maybe considering having a non-exec director or someone else on your board, pick someone out of a completely different industry, or pick a much younger person, because we forget the generational shift that happens that's really needed to support. I've seen or attended a lot of conferences that may focus on women's empowerment and how we're giving them guidance and the importance of equality and so on and so forth. But, one of the last ones I was at was a big win with Cranfield School of Management and Barclays Bank. And I went to both parties afterwards that was running it and said, you've completely missed one really important factor here. Every single woman that sat in that panel was mid-late 40s or 50s. And you have an audience here of a lot of young women in their 20s and 30s. You need some of those young women on that audience talking about their experience and sharing from that space. We mustn't forget the intergenerational knowledge. You know the importance of this, Anne, with your Irish ancestry too.
Absolutely.
Our grandmothers and great grandmothers were the matriarchs. They were the storytellers. They helped us engage and they helped keep the families together. They helped keep the communities together. And I think in a crazy kind of way, that's part of where we're going back to. Get more connected with your local community and your local environment, instead of feeling that you constantly always have to be on the phone or on social media. Start building your own hubs and your own tribes and your own connections, and really build that up and support each other in that mannerism. I think there's no question in my mind that is where we'll go.
Do you know, I've neglected the local. As you're talking, I'm thinking, I have neglected the local. I definitely have. In fact, most people where my office is, I've been here over 20 years, don't know I'm here. And I've been, so busy expanding, but I can really see, especially since COVID, how we need to look after our local environment and our local people. I can really see, in fact, I want to contact one of the local charities to give them a bit of support for their people. But yeah, no, I really can see that. I've definitely neglected that. So that was a bit, oops. Yeah, I can, yeah. If you get the small part right, and people need support, they need building up. Yeah. We, as you say, tribe, I've been talking about tribes a lot lately, so I totally get that. And I really get what you say about serving. Stuart Wilde used to say that, and he used to say, you're here to serve people, not be a big shot. And I've noticed the people that do well are more in service. They're more polite, they're more helping others than look at me and I big shot. And book I was reading recently, I'm trying to remember what it's called now, it showed that the business with the most rapid growth didn't have the big show-off leader. They had the humble leader, who you probably might not even know their name, but they're the ones who had the massive growth on their companies. So the serve is wonderful. I love this, Shirley. This is just so good. I really do love what you said. I love what you're doing. I really think it's what we need now. I can see people struggling so much in their businesses, running around trying to find the next big thing rather than just serve, be local, keep it simple. So how, I'm going to put in obviously links to your websites, but how can people contact you and find you?
Our website is www.thesimpleseries.com. Key products that if you're thinking of doing something and not quite there yet is obviously our Y program. That's a standalone program. The Biz Fast Track program is our core, and that runs over 3 months. Again, if you look through on the services section, you can see where they are. We also have the ability to design programs to help support others in that process as well. So, you know, I've just recently done one here in Northern Ireland. And we're supporting rural women because we felt it was a really important oversight in society. So again, you know, always think about what, rather than going with something that's already done and out there. As you said earlier, you know, the gentleman that decided to be a hypnotherapist and suddenly there's 45 in the local area. Is there something that you can offer that's just that little bit different, that's more niche, more specific, and therefore you're creating a more important hub around what it is that you're doing? Yeah.
I love that. This is great. I'm going to put the links in. Thank you so much. Just really, everything you said is so spot on, and it's like a get more local. And I've learned from this today. So this is fabulous. Thank you so much, and we will talk again.
Thank you, Anne. Much appreciate it.
Take care.